Welcome to episode 114 of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. I am Dave Deacon, and we are talking invasive and noxious plants today with Oklahoma State University's Dr. Karen Hickman. So you know there will be lots of interesting information in this episode, and you'll be able to find links to what she talks about on our website, reddirtagronomy.com. Before we dive in, take a second and hit the subscribe button on your streaming service so you'll always know when the latest Red Dirt Agronomy podcast drops. As always, we start with a quick trip around the table for an introduction to the dream team of dirt and all things that grow in it. Let's start with Oklahoma State University Extension Cropping System Specialist.
If you sign up for Warren Prime, he gives you a TikTok every morning, too. So 7 to 7:30 is when the TikToks typically come in.
Dr. Josh Lofton. And to his left, we find Oklahoma State University Extension Precision Nutrient Management Specialist.
Again, another 4 Okies at the table with Dave.
Dr. Brian Ernell. Now across from Brian is Oklahoma State University Extension Soil and Water Conservation Management Specialist.
My dad starts asking if they want to buy peaches. He doesn't have peaches, but he asks them. I said, well, you calling me, to sell me that? I got some peaches, and I can sell you a dozen for $10 or 2 dozen for $5 or whatever kind of crazy crap that he says. That's the next phase of the negotiation with the telemarketer.
Dr. Jason Warren. The doctors enjoy hearing from you and answering your questions, so if you have a question about soil or crop production, jump over to reddirtagronomy.com and leave a question there, or just send us an email directly, podcast@reddirtagronomy.com, and we will discuss your question on the next episode. We will get into a pretty good discussion about invasive and noxious plants in a few minutes, but we'll kick off our chat with Dr. Karen Hickman by starting with her current position as Environmental Science Program Director. And her introduction comes from a program alumnus, Dr. Jason Warren. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast.
Well, yeah, today we have Karen Hickman, and I'll let her describe her title, but in general, she one big part of her program is the director of the Environmental Science Program, which I had graduated from in 1999. So it's been around a long time, but they've really taken it to the next level, I think. Right, Karen?
Yeah, I think so. I'm hopeful anyway. So Karen Hickman, I'm the director of the Environmental Science Program, but I'm also the director of undergraduate research, honors, and academic assessment for Ferguson College of Ag.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's really, it's been a good program. Even Tyson, was on earlier. He came out of that program. We've got a lot of good folks, and now they've got resources. Karen's a full-time director of it, and they generate a lot of good students. And it's very unique in that it focuses on science, the science of land management and environmental resources.
So, natural resources, water resources, and then environmental policy. So we have students funneled through those 3 options. Yeah. They take a lot of soils classes. They are ending up either in grad school, going to law school, or ultimately in land management agencies at the Fed level or the state level, ODEQ, Oklahoma Conservation Commission. Yeah. So at the state level too. So we've grown since 2018. We had 61 students, and Tyson Auctioner did the math for me, and we've grown by 50%. So we're above 90 now.
Is that right?
It's awesome. Yeah, and they're really well-qualified, well-trained science students, and they're focused on the environment. And typically people will say, why is the environmental science program in a college of ag?
Yeah.
And my response is always just going to be, agriculture is key to the environment. Yeah. And, our whole goal is sustainability, clean water, clean air, healthy soil. We aren't going that way. Anyway.
Yeah.
So we will later.
Okay, good enough.
I think it's really cool. So the resources, I want to you address why you've grown, but I think it really speaks volumes. One is room availability, but it's really cool that the Department of Plant and Soil Sciences main office is right next to the main office for the Environmental Sciences Program. So it really shows kind of that collaborative effect. And I know you and past department heads and current department heads, there's a lot of, I hope from a faculty member, there's a fair amount of collaboration that comes along with the two leads.
So, and then the one of the coolest things is that we've added a faculty member whose total line is environmental science, and she is Dr. Julie Labar. She's basically a plant and soil science faculty member, and we'll go through the tenure track on that. But she's contributing significantly and full time to the environmental science program, and so it's just awesome to show the collaborative effort that I know is going to be beefed up in New Frontiers, but then also the support that the administration has shown and the Plant and Soil Science Department has shown.
As far as the students go, what's the difference between a student getting Plant and Soil Sciences degree and environmental science degree? What's kind of the separating factor between the two?
So I think for knowing the Plant and Soil Science programs, a lot of those are going to be more management centered, right? So they're going to go into production ag, maybe be into crop consulting, working directly with the producers on that, as well as soils. They're going into the federal agencies or they're working on, precision ag. But the others are in environmental science. Those students aren't necessarily going to be managing or trying to advise people on raising a crop. They're just going to be able to advise people on making sure that their processes that they're using are of key environmental kind of knowledge.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But most of the students in environmental science, and maybe I'm biased because I grew up on a farm and then I went through that program. But what I always enjoyed about it was that it was science. Like, we weren't there to learn about, environment, and, we can learn about environmental, activism and all that kind of stuff, right. And environmental policy and economics of the environment. But you were learning about the science and learning about how to be an unbiased, assessment of the human conditions impact on the environment, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And they're doing it, they're doing it in the state, they're doing it at the national level, and then some are going international. So we're excited about it.
Yeah. So what kicked up the student numbers? Why is it because you have more resources or the interest or combo?
I think resources is number one. Visibility, so we have an office now, we have a suite, we have a complex, and we work really hard communicating with students who are prospective students, and then certainly educating those in the Student Success Center about environmental science and what those degrees could offer. But then, it's just visibility. That's one. And lastly, sorry, I forgot about this one, but that is a career growth area. So environmental science careers and the openings and positions for them is supposed to grow by, I think now it's 2025, by 11%. So I don't have a student who can't get a job that wants one. So.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, do you think the overall general community perception on environmental science and the focus on it has also, you get people on the red carpet talking about activism, and people see that are 16, 17 years old, Hollywood and all the people they like to watch for their hobbies are talking about environmental science, and they're like, well, everybody's talking about it now.
Well, I remember that when I was that age. When I was, 17, 18, I remember being the environment being important, but we never realized it was a career path. And so now having a career path is, because we have a whole page of websites they can go to find open positions, and I'm constantly being, sent emails about jobs or internships that are available, and it's so wide, it's so widespread. So yeah.
So yeah, because they could work in ag, which is why they're
there,
they could work in oil and natural gas.
Sure.
The interesting thing is, my mother-in-law has her best friend, her son works at DFW Airport as an environmentalist, looking at petroleum spills and all that, for the airports. It's just crazy that almost everybody needs an environmentalist to make sure that we're not just negatively affecting the environment.
Here's my breadth of positions that students have gotten when they graduate. I have a student who's going to work in the irrigation industry in California. I have a student who's working for Amazon in Georgia as an environmental health and safety engineer. Right? Yeah. So there's your breadth. And then there's, law school, grad school.
Yeah.
You guys just graduated a student in environmental science with a master's degree who is working with ODEQ in the city, in the state office, McKinnon Paniel, who's going to, she's going to be working with, some of our pretty highly contaminated sites in the States.
Yeah. Real interesting.
So I'm curious, as a environmental studies undergrad, Jason.
Science.
I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah.
I forgot the science part.
Yeah, it's science.
So
Science.
There's a big damn
Oh,
difference.
gotcha.
Big
Don't
difference.
get Karen started on that.
Right. So Jason, when did you know that you wanted to go on and pursue a master's and a PhD and eventually go on to be one of the world-renowned extension soil
health guru. I
soil
think
health
we
guru? I think that's what it's
established.
required to say. Yes.
You're so
Yeah.
kind.
Hold your applause.
No, and it's kind of a funny story. A lot of people have a plan in life. I really didn't. I kind of bounced around, and I won't go into the entire detail. But I was very fortunate to find the environmental science program in my sophomore year, and then I took the long-term program. And as I was going through, I was taking a lot of soils classes. And Jeff Hattie at the time, he was the director of the environmental science program back then, and so he got me into a lot of soils classes, and he's like, oh, yeah, you should go to graduate school. And I'm like, okay. That's how I ended up in it. And then I really enjoyed, I loved the discovery of doing research and things and learning things on my own through literature reviews and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I always tell people is like, you got to be a little weird to get a PhD in whatever, and so you have to like that kind of stuff. And so then I just kept going to school, and that's how I ended up.
Historically, I don't know how far it goes back, but historically, the director or whatever it was a plant soil sciences faculty for a long time.
Started out in forestry.
Forestry, but then it was
Dave
in my
Lewis.
time it was Jeff Hattie and then Brian Carter.
Yeah, and so
were
then when Brian
long-term.
Carter retired, we did this external review and realized that we needed to put up or shut up, and so basically we decided, or the administration, the department heads decided, let's add some resources. So.
Yeah. And it, like I say, it's a really cool program because you get to take a broad, sweeping set of classes related to ecology.
As an ag kid, as you came in as you're a farm boy, flat out, Western Oklahoma farm boy. You came in and did the environmental, and there's that connotation when I was in school about the environmental sciences to a degree. Is it because of Hattie or what?
Well, I came into the environment. I was a chemical engineer as a freshman, and that quickly dissolved.
Spiraled downward.
That quickly
Thanks for that. Thanks for sharing.
Into a non-dream. But I had taken all these classes, and I'd battled through like chemistry and physics and some pretty tough classes. And then and what's really funny is there's my roommate, my freshman year, he was thumbing through because he was failing out of geology, and he's like, "Oh, look at this environmental science program." I was like, "Oh, that sounds good." And at the time, they sent me to Dr. Donnelly. And Dr. Donnelly, who is, for those who don't know anything about the history of our department, he was our crops production teaching faculty. He just retired from K-State up there. And he's like, "You don't need to talk to me. You need to talk to the guy next door, Jeff, or Dr. Hattie." And so then it just went on from there. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, we'll sign you up." I mean, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Like I say, I had a plan, but it was a disaster. And then environmental
Did
science
Washington
turned out
Street
pretty
play
good.
in a
What?
role in the
Don't
disaster?
even go there.
No.
So one of the cool things, and I love to make people move in directions that I want them to, and that is, that this is a really
Steering the
broad
herd here.
program. This is really a broad program, and one of the classes that I get to teach, because I came in from natural resource ecology and management. And one of the classes I have been able to continue teaching is ecology of invasive species. So there you go.
Yeah, and just and the environmental science stuff changes, and it's so fascinating.
She's trying.
And I'm going to get to that. But when I was a kid, it was deforestation of the Amazon, and it was the ozone layer, and it was nitrogen pollution, and then quickly phosphorus pollution in surface waters. And those are all the things now. And then, of course, now you have climate change.
global change,
and all these things,
which ties back to invasive species.
Yeah, but
she's really
and
trying
that's
to
really
switch.
no, and but the cool thing is like when we were taking all those classes, you didn't just learn about soil chemistry and fertility. You learned about the ecology.
Yep.
I mean, wildlife ecology,
The
basic
the
ecology, range
the soil
ecology,
biota. Yeah.
and all these things in these classes that you can then tie it all together at a big picture level, and like the invasive species that Karen's talking about. In my life, and again, we're not that old. It is crazy to see the level of invasion of invasive species in the last 50 years or 40 years, right?
40 years.
Yeah.
Easy.
I was in my late 20s when I saw Old World Bluestem starting to spread down the roadside.
Yeah. And it's pretty common and everywhere, and it's something that's extremely challenging to get rid of, right?
Oh, horribly. Yeah.
I want one thing before we get to invasives is your other part of what you do, the undergraduate research program,
That's
which
awesome.
all three of us, I think, have undergraduates, and I think
yeah.
it's a big selling point for, Oklahoma State and coming into either plant and soil sciences or environmental sciences program is the opportunity for undergraduate research. Can you give just a little spiel on that before we talk Old World?
Yeah. So I just think that the Ferguson College of Ag, Dr. Clary, and then Dr. Sinseman now in the OSU Ag Research, which people used to refer to as OAES, Oklahoma Ag Experiment Station, and now they're marketing OSU Ag Research. Scott and Cinda have just really put forward a lot of support and finances to help support undergraduate research within the college. And so it's opened up opportunities for students to be able to work with faculty members who, I had some people go, oh, I didn't even know I could do this. This is awesome. That how did this student find me? And I go, well, they told me their interests. I know you. I sent them to you. And, it's so amazing to see where they go. And that's one of the things we're also tracking is where they end up going and how far they end up going in their career. And so the experience at undergraduate research just makes, us better because our graduate students get a mentor, we get a mentor and interact with awesome students, and the undergrads get to experience something that, most other students at OSU don't get to.
Yeah, it's good. I've had really good students come out in the last couple of years on the undergrad.
Well,
stuff.
and it's even students who come in who they've heard the idea of being able to do undergrad research. They weren't accepted into say the freshman research scholars program, and then they hear about this opportunity and man, they can just go great guns. It's awesome.
Yeah. What about the capstone program for the environmental science?
Yeah.
Tell us a couple examples of like the kind of projects those students have to work on to graduate.
Well, I start laughing because whenever anyone asks me about the capstone projects, it brings to mind the Ferguson Dairy, the lagoon, the sewage lagoon, and we've had students in 2 different semesters, 2 different years, work on the sewage lagoon, and in every semester, Doug Hamilton out of BAE Biosystems, he'll get them on a boat. And they have to get on the boat, and they have to basically pull themselves across. And it never has it worked that well. And the first year there was a leak in the boat. So anyway, so their whole goal is to really assess the lifespan of the lagoon, assess where they might be able to spread some of the sewage or the effluent and sludge. So that's one. Another one is. We had students working on the Vincing project, in which they had to develop a new protocol for assessing riparian habitat associated with the Vincing project that's funded. I don't know who's funding it, but there's so many. The OSU Water Resource Center, Kevin Wagner, Ryan Reuter, Chris So, all those guys were dealing with it. And then another one that I thought was way cool was. Really kind of through the Rural Renewal Initiative where they were trying to assess drinking well quality, private drinking well quality in the state. And so we had students that went out to Alfalfa County and they started the project there with Tommy Puffenbarger and they had over 100 water samples come in, realized that we had to have all hands on deck to process those. And then they went to Tillman and Pontotoc County and did others. And it was just to see what private drinking well contamination or quality was. And so that was, the experiences the student had, whether it be in true research or in, an academic educating people or an extension. It's just really fun to see the projects. I can go on, but,
Yeah. Well, and the reason I wanted you to comment on it is because they've come to me and asked me questions like, "Oh man, I'm glad I don't have to be in charge of this because this is pretty damn complicated."
Well, that's why
they get into some pretty interesting and complex things as students that are about to graduate, and they get to do it in the, the comfort of an educational setting instead of just being thrown to the wolves.
I mean, the big thing is experience failure, and you learn a lot.
And like you say, like working with Tommy and all, get to find out what the extension guys can do and learn how to engage with growers and stuff like that. So it's awesome.
So we'll do the transition now that Karen's been waiting for. So Karen, what drove your love for Old World Blue Stem, or therefore the hatred and the bane of your existence? Where did... So, you come from, you were actually a scientist, and you were doing things at one point in your career. And so.
I was actually. Thanks for that, Brian. Wow. I'm not on the dark side. Awesome. I still try to teach them that. Yeah. So I hail from the same county as Jason Warren. I'm from Woods County, man. And anyway, so it's
lots
really...
of good people from Woods County.
Lots of good people. Oh, I tell you. So
But we don't want to get started on that.
No. Well, I can go back to Woods County because I'm going to start this and say that I'm going to say my mother and father are the ones, and I've tell this story to my classes sometimes, and so if you'll indulge me. So my mother and father, James and Joyce Hickman, they farmed and ranched in Alfalfa in Woods County, and every summer we lived in town in Alva, went to school, and then we moved to the farm to be around Daddy when he was at the field, and I ended up being the one that helped him in the field a lot. But my mother hated seeing her little girls get stickers or goat heads in their feet. So she put a battle on. So every summer she would take the hoe and roll up masses of goat heads. And I would, with my older sister, we would go and load them up in the little red wagon, and then we'd get to burn them. So, prescribed fire, gotta love. And so she started that, and then thistles came in. So, boom, let's go out and let's cut the thistle, put it in the little red wagon, pour a little Morton salt on it, kill it, and then get to burn it. And so we don't have the thistles, we don't have the sticker. To this day, we don't have those, right? And then transition to me going to grad school. I went to K-State to get my PhD, and I was working on a basically rangeland grazing system stocking rate study and doing native plants community research. And I was going to a family reunion in the northwest part of Oklahoma by the May Ranch, and in Woods County. And as I was driving up there was this grass that was, I'd been driving those roads all my life and seeing, the little blue stem, the dotted gay feather, all these native plants. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing these fields that are just solid with this one type of grass. And now it's on the roadside. So I get to the family reunion, I asked my daddy, I said, "Daddy, what is that?" "Oh, that's that WW spar."
Yeah.
At WW spar grass. And I go, "Well, tell me about that." He goes, "Yeah, they plant it in CRP." So Oklahoma, then I researched it a little bit, and in the first sign-up periods in Oklahoma and Kansas, they allowed Old World Blue Stem in Kansas to be planted in a CRP field. So in the 80s, 87, 88 sign-up. And then Kansas said, we aren't going to let them. And so if you can go along that line, go north of May Ranch, and there's not the Old World Blue Stem issue. South of there, the majority of CRP fields were planted Old World Blue Stem, and that became a focus for our written prelims when I was working on my PhD. We had to write 3 abstracts for proposals and projects. Yeah. One of them was on Old World Blue Stem and a competition study. Yeah. And that's the one they chose for me to write on. And I ultimately ended up getting that funded when I was at Fort Hays. And so that's how it started, Brian.
Yeah. Because I've heard the same thing, too, from my predecessor is, back in the day, CRP, they said it's to cover the ground and keep it in conservation and in condition to be opened back up for production someday. And then they added, the wants and desires of ecosystem services and ecosystem function, and that's what killed the Old World Blue Stem, because it does not function in our ecosystems in the southern plains properly.
So interestingly, no one really cares to fund a plant competition study and find out if Old World Blue Stem's competitive, right? So instead, I was up at Kansas at Fort Hays State on faculty doing research there, by the way. And the first funding I got for it was, how does Old World Blue Stem affect bird communities?
Yeah.
Right? So to sample bird communities, you go out and you do line transects, and then you also sample for food availability, which is insects. So I get to do a bird insect study and found out that here's native, pretty high in diversity and numbers in insects and in birds. Native CRP, so if you had a CRP that was planted to native, it was a little bit lower but higher than Old World Blue Stem was down there at, nothing. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's stark, right? It's a classic decline. And so with that ended up opening up people's eyes. I got yelled at a bit from relatives that had planted it, and ended up just continuing on that theme.
How long did Oklahoma allow the Old World to be the CRP? Was that 5, 10, 20? How long was that a part of that CRP program?
Until we put it on the Dirty Dozen list, maybe, and opened some people's eyes and said, it may have started when Clinton was in office, and in '99 he had an executive order, and it really affected Texas. I was in Texas then, and in Texas they were planting what's called KR Blue Stem or King Ranch Blue Stem. They were planting that on roadsides for erosion control, right, and easy establishment. And when that executive order came down, Texas stopped planting it. Oklahoma continued.
It's always been fascinating to me. You look back in the history, specifically for roadside stabilization, the crap that we have brought in for roadside stabilization over the decades. I mean, we have Old World, which was well known, but you also have kudzu was brought in and supported for roadside stabilization. You have multiflora rose, which was brought in, established for roadside stabilization. And you have Lespedeza, or Sericea lespedeza. So all these 4, which we now consider probably 4 of the 12 Dirty Dozen, or close to that, were all at one time brought in to be, saviors for our conservation.
So I teach an ecology of invasive species class, and if I have a student who hasn't studied very much and they're asked what's the primary reasons that plants were brought in, I just always classically say erosion control and forage production. And if they do that, then chances are good they've been introduced.
Yeah. Well, a question that comes to mind for me is, like, you look at all these things and we bring out all these plants and it's like, oh, it's going to be so good. But then it's not. Why is it that we look at all these, exotic species and bring them in relative to just facilitating the utilization of native plants? Is it because of our environment is not conducive for, like, rapid establishment? I mean, what is that?
Or is it just to be fancy?
Why is that?
I think your phrase "rapid establishment," right? We have no patience whatsoever. We screw something up, and we have no patience whatsoever in wanting to deal with it. So I mean, think about it. So you've got a plant that, if this is the list of characteristics you're listening to or you're hearing about that plant, you probably shouldn't plant it. It has lots of seeds. Oh, it produces a lot of seeds. Ooh, it can spread really rapidly. That's wonderful, doesn't it? Right? It has rapid growth rate, right? It can produces a lot of biomass. It's we can germinate that so well. Look at that. It doesn't even have a dormancy. It'll just, seeds will start, salt cedar, right? Yeah. 24 hours after salt cedar seeds hit the ground in moisture, boom. I got it. Boom, man. Boom.
You dropped it.
Yeah.
It can germinate,
Karen,
right? Yeah. And then adventitious growth, so all of those characteristics are characteristics why a producer is going to say, oh, yeah, that sounds great. But if you think about the native system, the native systems, they didn't evolve with that. They evolved to be competitive and hold their own and provide all the other services that we have and want.
I mean, you just also described, if you talk about the producers want it, they also can describe every weed that they're fighting right now the same way. Pigweed, about any of our weedy grass species or broadleaf horseweed. We talked about cheatgrass, Italian ryegrass. All of them are the exact same way. Right. And so, we brought that in thinking, this is awesome.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I'm not going to go there. But this is the same conversation you and I have had along with some other people about the addition of biology into our soil, non-native. Is it, we want to add this biology because it's rapid colonization, rapid expansion. I'm like, really?
In the soil?
In the soil.
Yeah. Well, that's frightening because you can't identify all those species, right?
Yeah.
So who knows if you're... So here, let's add this additive to the soil because it's going to help with, regeneration. Well, it could be this kudzu below ground. You don't know what it's going to do to the native system.
You're the one that introduced that phrase to me, and I've used it forever and will always use it.
Which one? The kudzu below
the soil.
I mean, that could be Gail Wilson, too.
I couldn't remember if it's your Gail, but...
Because I've sat in rooms and I've sat in meetings where people talked about genetically modified soil microbiome and stuff like that. And I've heard these same individuals that say, well, people would be more acceptable of a genetically modified soil microbiome versus a genetically modified crop that they're going to eat.
Because they don't eat it, the soil, and they can't see it.
But it's just like everything else. You keep jacking with stuff, and I mean, you never know what's. And I guess it's easy to fearmonger, but it just kind of history plays out that you keep jacking with stuff.
I mean, we planted kudzu, right? We started in the 1800s, planted it. It was promoted by USDA into the 30s, 40s. It was bred for
I've got pamphlets from the 40s.
At least and bred out of some of the southeastern universities for research for forage production, and it outgrew the cattle. And as we say, they can't grow, they can't climb trees, and the goats can't either. So they can't eat it when it climbs up those.
So
trees.
if we go back to the old world, and when it comes to control, if we look at the western part of the state, that we still have that invasive species of the old world.
We have it all over the state.
What is the strategy to eradicate or move away from that? I mean, cedars we can cut down and treat and burn through, but what about old
Luckily
world?
for us, right?
Yeah.
Because just remove the green and you can kill the cedar tree. This cedar tree. So killing old world blue stem is tough. Why? It produces a lot of seeds, so you have a soil seed bank there that's pretty highly viable, highly germinable seeds. Second is it doesn't have any other enemies. It just shuts down, and it's got a rhizome bank, a bud bank, so it's really difficult to kill. So let's not talk about killing it in a CRP field where it's a monoculture. Let's talk about killing it in a native field, a native rangeland, right? I got all the tall grasses, mid grasses, short grasses there that are warm season grasses too. So now you got a new warm season grass in there. It's tough to kill the same functional group. And so, I've worked with Keith Harmony at K-State in Hayes, Walt Fick at K-State in Manhattan, and then now Laura Goodman and Dwayne Elmore they have a study at Clemmy that we've worked on too. But the chemicals, at first when we were doing it, Keith and I in Hayes, we did a study with 9 different herbicides. One of them totally nuked the soil, but back then it was so expensive. The fuel to apply, etc., that we shifted our focus to Roundup. Well, then now Roundup it's okay, but it doesn't work in a year. So it's integrated pest management. You basically or integrated invasive species management. You have chemical control, biological control, graze the hell out of it. And then tillage. You could do tillage, but not if it's in a native rangeland. And so fire, properly timed, it's a monster.
What's the timing on fire on?
So that's the cool thing about that Dwayne and Laura did. They did a study where they implemented it so that they did So out of Texas, they found a hot burn in the summer would work, reduced it. but it only reduces it for like a year or two. So when they implemented the study at Clemmy at Bessie or south of Clinton, they put in fire too, and they found the hot summer fire really knocked it back, but we're seeing reinvasion, right? So it's reestablishing. So you can do one treatment, but there's no point in doing one treatment. Because if you do one treatment, you're just going to make it mad.
So are we talking annual or every 2 years or until it's gone?
Well, I don't know. The data are to be analyzed.
Okay.
So I know that as a scientist there, Brad. Is that what you're saying? That we just, I think I'm curious to see what their results are going to show. But I have not found anything that everybody has worked on that's going to knock it back permanently.
What you're talking about the seed bank? What's the viability of that seed? Is it a 5, 10, 100, 1,000? We don't really know.
No one knows. No one knows because they produce so many seeds that we had a seed bank study that we did on Clemmy too, and in areas in rangeland where it had invaded and it was about 20% cover. It swamped the seed bank. So it just took over. There's natives were still there and could germinate, but it swamped the seed bank. But in areas that were dominated by it, it was the predominant thing. And now we found that it alters the soil chemistry. Right?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It has it's allelopathic.
Allelopathic.
Gotta love that.
Well, so they've done some. I mean, it's hard to do this kind of on native range, but they've done some stuff on for a long time. Weeds in cropland, revenge kills weren't a thing, but they've got some data initial that things like pigweed, the seed viability, while it's still a produce seed, the viability is significantly less. So, I mean, have they done anything in looking at that kind of, because I mean, like you said, it's going to be near impossible to kind of get it out.
Right.
But obviously you're stating that maybe do a good hot summer burn, graze the heck out of it, plus add some herbicide into the mix is really the only way you're going to be able to successfully manage it. Can you do some of these other things that they're integrating in some of the crop things to maybe you're not going to decrease the seeds they produce, but maybe they're just not as viable?
So they've put so in the study at Clemmy we put wheat, we interseeded wheat. And interestingly, Johnson grass came in. But kind of relative to the seed bank study, I need someone who's young to do it. I mean, I'm too old.
It's got good eyes.
No, they need to start young because they got to follow it for 40 years. So, you got to plan ahead. I didn't.
40 years.
I'm serious. So I think, maybe interseeding, whatever, but... if you're in rangeland, though, you don't want to have a high input.
What if you have that rangeland, like you said, that 20% is covered, it's just now coming in? What do you do? What if it's maybe a year or two in before it does completely swamp that seed bed? What is your best management to just go right off the bat? This is the first year I've seen it, so this is what I need to do.
Well, if it's the first year you've seen it, then hopefully it's just a few isolated plants. And as they say in invasive species, you got to hit those isolated plants because those are the ones going to make significant changes to the system. So, in my mind, those are the ones you go in and you dig up and you pull out, and don't let them reproduce. The prevention is key, right? Prevention. Don't let the seeds get there, and don't cut them up like starfish and let them spread.
Rogan.
So, it's tough, and because keep in mind you're battling. So my whole goal is to try to protect the native system, right? But you can have next door someone who had a CRP field, or we have lots of producers who are making some pretty good money on old world blue stem hay. And
so that's my next big thing is my mother-in-law plants KR blue stem or have before because of how good of a forage.
Right.
It
has high protein.
It's a rapid developer. It's got great forage, and so if you have these highly eroded, that's always what's recommended. Have you tried putting some KR blue stem out? So I mean, if you did have some and you wanted to really hit it with cattle or something like that, I mean, forage potential is there.
Oh yeah, because it's got. I mean, it competes with the natives on protein level, but it will. once it reproduces, the protein level just drops, right? So we did a study in Hayes where we assessed Indian or Big Blue, Indian, maybe side oats and Old World, and the Old World was just plummeted when it started reproducing. So the whole goal is don't let it reproduce to seed. Don't let it go to seed, and then the cattle will come in and eat it.
Because that's the big thing. We've talked before. Once you get out of the body of the state and you get out to the panhandle where growers can't really do Bermuda pasture, not really alfalfa ground. They don't want to do the sorghums. They want to have more of a perennial pasture out there. They start looking at the Old World Blue Stem, and that's a tough sell because
it rapidly grows.
It's hey, I just want a forage that I can bale or I can graze, and it seems like it. So I guess for those growers that are maybe taking ground out of production, maybe don't want to go to native, like what is that thing that would slide in there that could be a dry western forage that
there you go. What is it?
Yeah.
Old World Blue Stem.
Would it be a love grass? I mean, would that be?
I don't know. I don't know that I can speak well enough about lovegrass. We've done weeping lovegrass.
Yep.
Weeping lovegrass was one of the other dominant or common plants in the panhandle of Texas, southern or southwestern Oklahoma, that were planted in CRP2. Western lovegrass stays intact. It stays. It doesn't spread, right?
Move around.
Doesn't move.
Because all the CRP that my dad had was in weeping lovegrass.
Yeah. The trick is it can be, if you put them in there and they start grazing, and then you have these wolf plants that aren't grazed, those are the ones that you just start seeing these big clumps of it's a beautiful plant, right? But you see these big clumps.
Looks great on a golf course, but
not
out
for erosion control.
Isn't it also why they burn that? I mean, that's one of the things that a good managed love grass, weeping love grass, is burned on
because then you don't have those tussocks that kind of establish. So anyway, I guess back to the question about the panhandle. I mean, so I'm on the Oklahoma Invasive Plant Council, right? And so I try to draw the line between them or the Oklahoma Invasive Plant Council and then just a common sense practice, right? And I don't want some of my relatives to hear this statement, but we're going. And that is that I mean, if you have a former crop field that was tilled, economically, it just makes sense to put it into Old World Blue Stem. But if we could promote programs through NRCS that says, okay, we have this highly erodible or marginally erodible cropland. Oh, that sounds familiar, right? CRP.
Yeah.
If we have that, we tilled it. We have all this erosion that's soil erosion, water contamination, whatever. If we could convert that, let's take our time. It didn't get in that condition overnight, so let's take our time. Plant a mixture of natives, not high cereal species like the big five grasses. You got to start with some of those annuals that help condition the soil, if you will, and be the nurse plants for those more advanced competitive plants. But my whole goal is we just have to protect our native rangeland. We have ecosystem services that I don't even think we know about yet that are going to be really important as we move through this global change, through these climate change crises. I just think we're going to see that some of our native rangelands are going to be the ones that help us maintain grazing. Because if we have some monocultures, what's going to happen if that one plant that we have so many hundreds of millions or hundreds of thousands of acres of monoculture, and one thing causes it to crash, you just lost your whole production. Diversity is key.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of these native plants, they've went through a lot of hard times in this environment. I mean, if you look at geologic time over the last 100,000 years, I mean, I don't know how old these species are, but I know that we went through some times that humans didn't stay here.
And then
in the last 10,000 years, there was periods of time where humans moved out of Oklahoma, right?
Right. Oh yeah. Well, so
parts of it.
I always like to say, but those native species, they evolved with all their enemies too, right?
Yep.
So they have all of their predators, all their consumers, all their pathogens with them. The non-native species we bring in, they don't have that. They're enemy released. They don't have those pressures, so they get to allocate all their resources to growth and reproduction. Yep. The natives are saying, okay, fine, I got you. Here, you can have some of my resources because you infected me. So, boom. Anyway, it's just, it's frustrating when you're trying to say you can't think short term. You got to think long term. And long term is, I think, native diversity is going to be essential.
Whenever we think of invasive species and lists and everything, many of the states have a pretty lengthy list of these are invasive plants for our state. How many plants are on that list in Oklahoma, and why is it so short?
So don't confuse noxious with invasive.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that.
Noxious weeds, we have a noxious weed list, right? It's a legislative list voted on by legislators who probably didn't assess all the, origins of all the species or how prevalent they were.
Right.
So we have the 3 thistles, right? That's it started out as a thistle law, now it's the noxious weed list for Oklahoma. We have the shortest noxious weed list in the US. So that's one. Second, though, is do we have other species that are causing bigger problems? Oh my gosh, yes. So we list those as invasive. So legally, noxious weeds have to be controlled, right?
Right.
Invasive species, unless they're on the noxious weed list, there's no legislative guidance in the state of Oklahoma associated with them. Some states have been proactive. I'll give Colorado an example. Colorado, even Kansas, Texas, New Mexico, all our surrounding states have longer invasive species or longer noxious weed lists than the state of Oklahoma. We've had Senate hearings on it in the state. So in Oklahoma, we have what we call the Dirty Dozen, and this is the Oklahoma Invasive Plant Council who got input from producers, Farm Bureau, ODWC, everybody, right? It's 13 species so it's a Dirty Dozen, right? Those species are really prevalent throughout the state. And then we've gone through and we've identified through herbarium records, because we work closely with the OU Biological Survey, OSU's herbarium. We've got all the herbarium records. And so we've identified over 300 non-native species in the state that are plants, right? Well, not all of those are causing problems, right? Wheat's not causing a problem. Corn's not causing a problem, unless you're trying to raise it for, production. So,
right.
So we now have kind of culled that list down, and we're at over 150. And so we actually, I think in October, we'll be going live with our website on a searchable database, searchable list for these species, and we've put them into categories of, problems in pasture, problems in rangeland, problems in urban settings, problems in water. So we have all of those categories, but then we also divided up the state into 4 regions. So we get the Panhandle, Northeast, Southeast, Southwest, Northwest. Maybe missed one. Anyway, so we've got all those 5 regions, so you can go to your region, search for that land use, and then identify the list.
So how does that help me as a landowner? Say Old World Bluestem, for example, my neighbor's planting it. It gets into my production system. There's really no teeth whenever it comes to helping that secondary producer in that realm. Is there any future for that for the receiver of the seeds?
Any of the species that are on the Dirty Dozen list that are so prevalent in the state, there's no way we will never eradicate them.
Right.
We're never going to try to legislate against them.
Right.
The neighbor needs to play nice, right? And that means probably just accept fate.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah.
Well, and that's what
it's depressing.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges with this whole deal, and it's like, what are you gonna do?
I mean, you made the point. There's so
do
much of it that legislation would just be almost insane to do because you couldn't get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
You're making something illegal that.
So what could we do? Prevention.
Mm-hmm.
We could make sure that whatever species we're considering Or, so we identify a new species in a field, and that species isn't very common, isn't prevalent, it's brand spanking new. Kill it now, right? Eradicate it then. Because prevention is key. Because once it gets established, we have no idea how many years it's going to take before it becomes a problem. And so whenever we're looking at potentially new forages, new crops, etc., we got to go through that list.
New ornamental trees.
New ornamental trees, and we're doing that. I mean, the horticulture industry, I think the horticulture industry
You're just trying to get in the grackles now. I know what you're doing.
The horticulture industry is doing a great job.
They're looking more at
native.
Oh,
God, yeah. Well, I don't know that they're still bringing in non-native species, right? But they're going through the list. Does it produce a lot of seeds? Does it stay where it's supposed to? Does it rapidly grow and swamp out everything else? If it does, then they're going to say, I guess we shouldn't introduce that.
It's named the Bradford pear.
But guess what? We still plant Bradford pear, right? We sell it. Why? Because once it becomes an economic component of someone's system, you're wrecking havoc on trying to get rid of it. There's no way.
So when you go to prevention, I think, kind of go back to that question I was originally asked you is, like, the easiest thing is not to pull it up. It's just not to even get it planted.
Oh, God, yeah.
So is there anything that could be possible with legislation on, it has to go through this multi-stage screening process before we bring something new in? I mean, because it seems like that's where legislation and regulation needs to do, because like Brian said, saying it's illegal to have Old World Blue stem out would be ridiculous, because every producer west of a certain parallel would just be gone, right?
Right.
But it's like, okay, so when we get these ornamental trees, or we get these new components into a cover crop mix, or we get these new forages, what potentially would a regulation process look like to screen something before we do just plant it all over the landscape?
I mean, so if it's in the U.S., unless it's listed as a noxious weed in a state, it's fair game to move. Right? If it's not on the federal list,
it's just amazing to me that that's true. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
How can you be that ignorant about?
I'm ignorant about a lot of stuff.
I'm sorry.
I said it. She was once a scientist, and now she's calling you ignorant. So I think the shovel's been placed.
No. I don't mean it that way. But so I'm going to push back on this and say, I think as scientists, if we're in a situation in which we have we have a project, we're trying to find a new cover crop mix, and we see in our results that this plant is establishing quickly and it's taken over, it's getting into the roadside, it's going across to the neighbors, we have a responsibility and an ethic as a scientist to pull it and say, nope, we shouldn't do that. Okay, it may help, and oh my gosh, my career's going to be advanced by that, but because I just established a new cover crop.
I want to throw in some that I want some not just cover crops. I think this is a topic that isn't seen, and I've seen it because I've seen some of the back research, is when we're talking about sensitive areas, is actually food plots. And some of the seed they're bringing, because if you think about where they're placing food plots, it's not in the middle of an ag field. It is in an area that is surrounded by native, either woodland or prairie or something. And I've seen some of the test, and there are some extremely aggressive plants in some of these food plots. See, some chicory that is just almost impossible to get rid of, and that will cover. Now, if I'm planting food plot, great.
Yeah.
And if Tecumani or one of the big seed companies drops it in there and advertises it, boom, it's gone. And so we've got cover crop, we've got food plot. There's a lot of different economic reasons that seeds are coming in. And I think
go ahead, Jeff.
I feel like we've gotten a little bit better at introducing like a forage, like a blank forage that wouldn't do this, but I think desperate times call for these desperate situations to where it's like, out in the panhandle, we need all this forage. Well, let's say 10, 15 years, we don't have pumping capacity, and even all of our forage is gone. It's like, well, what are we going to do? We have to do something. I think that's where we get into the situation that in good times, it's easy not to do these outside of, maybe like food plots or cover crops. But, kudzu came in for a reason. I mean, it was
pretty.
it was a very
It was an ornamental plant.
Looking back and putting yourself in that situation, it was a no-brainer to try it. But looking at the repercussions, it was a stupid idea to do it. But in that time, because we didn't have anything else, it was, what else are we going to do? Let's try it.
Yeah. Well, and even like with the cover crops, and that's one of the thing I've always been a little nervous about on the what we've seen in the last 10 years on cover crops. Is that we're bringing in all these plants, like, oh, yeah. And what's really interesting sociologically is it's easy to sell something to somebody that's new. Like if I say, well, you probably should just stick to cowpeas, mung beans, and sorghum Sudan. And, as a cover crop. You're going to do that again?
Really?
Yeah. Well, that doesn't seem like much fun. Yeah. How about something that I've never tried before? And I'm like, well, I guess if that's
Egyptian
what you want to do.
Amaranth.
Yeah. But you never freaking know what is going to.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've never put that, maybe it won't grow, or maybe it'll grow too good. I mean, and we don't know, and it's just haphazardly, and it's an easy market to market things that no one's ever seen before, because you can tell them it does all this stuff, and it may be true wherever it did it before. Or it may spread like wildfire into the pastures, and you never know.
Which
and
again
I've never
scares
heard
me on the soil side, because we have so many of these products that are biologicals. We're adding biology to the soil that is foreign, and it's only going to cost you $4 an acre, and you might get 5, and a bushel of wheat's worth 7. So why not do it? And we don't have the ecology behind these to see. One, I think a lot of the biology we put in Oklahoma won't survive because our soils are harsher than hell. I mean, they're hot, they're dry, they're low organic matter. But if something does make it through our soil and beats the natives, then it scares the crap out of me.
It's just, put something in the soil that's going to help the amaranth and the pigweed, or the horseweed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we're living in a fascinating world, because you can move this stuff lightning fast around the world now.
Yeah.
We have no idea what's coming in.
Yeah.
We have no idea.
Just a couple of years ago, I got a couple of packets in the mail of seeds, and they wanted me to plant those. And I think a lot of folks got those.
Yeah.
Wasn't that 2020 during the pandemic?
God, it was.
It was
2020.
Yeah, they had these packets that came in, and they just told you were supposed to take them to the Oklahoma Department of Ag.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got them, yeah.
And I remember getting that packet and going,
well, I think
this is awkward.
I think we got a packet in the department, and Beatrix looked at it, and she's like, I have no idea what this is.
Right.
Yeah.
What came of that?
We handed it into the Department of Ag.
Oh, I got a good 30 acres of. It really took off.
It grazes well.
Grazes really well. I can't identify
Lots of
half
seeds.
the plants. Oh,
good biomass
seeds everywhere.
Spreads like the dickens.
I mean, and it works well in low irrigated situations.
Your neighbors love you.
Oh, they do.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I knew to ask that question.
But that's the other thing, is that some of the other invasives that we talk about that aren't the plants, these kind of situations to where we don't even know they came in, and they're there before we even knew.
Exactly.
That, the zebra mussels and fire ants and et cetera, you can go on with the biological things that aren't plants that just grackles,
You mentioned fire ants. I just have to say, if we have a system in place in which we have soil quarantining, we have quarantine levels set up in the state of Oklahoma at the federal level to not move soil out of the southeast, the majority of southeastern Oklahoma counties, right? It's moved over past west of I-35 now. Why? Because they have red imported fire ants. Well, here, let's just lift that regulation and ship all that hay that's been sitting on the ground. Let's ship it to the Panhandle. So, we got to feed them, right? Well, okay, let's slow down and let's start looking at what we're doing.
Yeah.
If you look at the short-term answer, there's going to be long-term complications and ramifications of it. Now, what do we have in the Panhandle? Red imported fire ants.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't get me going.
Well, and that the unintended consequences of good intentions are crazy. It's
a
unreal.
tangled web.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tangled web.
Well, so did you answer this before? So you said that there was multiple layers of what a plant could be invasive versus noxious. And what is that threshold again? That
legislative.
Just totally legislative.
So typically in states, within a state or at the federal level, noxious is considered a legal term. Typically, there are some exceptions, but that's very rare. So within a state, they're going to list have a list of species that are on their noxious weeds list. Typically agriculturally related. Some states are now starting to put in horticulture, the ornamental trees, the aquatic nuisance species in their list that are plants, right? So a noxious weed, by definition, the landowner has to do something with it. There are some states, and I think Oklahoma should go here, that are putting in like Class A, B, and C type levels, in which if it's a Class A, and I always get this backwards, but if it's a Class A, they're the ones who they're over. We can't get rid of them. A Class B, but we can't introduce anymore or plant anymore. Class B, they're pretty established, but you really kind of need to do some control and don't spread them. Class C, we don't have them, we don't want them, don't bring them in, and if you see them, you have to immediately eradicate. So I think there's back to your comment about how many invasive species are on the list. So I think for a noxious weed list, we have a pretty good handle on what some of those species are that we could do as Class A, B, and C that I think would be pretty good for Oklahoma. But are they invasive? Pretty much all noxious weeds are going to be invasive, right? Are all invasive species noxious weeds? No, it depends on if they have been legislated. There's no legislation on invasive. So that's a descriptive term, typically. So it's hard for people to grasp that, because then you can get into the prohibited species, controlled species. So you start mixing all these words in, and people start getting confused.
So, and this may sound a little naive, but why doesn't the Oklahoma Department of Food and
Ag Food?
Thank you, Ag Food and Forestry. Why don't they have jurisdiction over creating that list, and why is it at a legislative level and not a ODAF level, I guess?
I think it's because that was legislated. I think I can't answer that.
No.
That's my. So I think it is a circle.
Yeah.
Because So I know ODAF put together some rules. For weed-free forage.
Right.
Well, in order for weed-free forage in the state of Oklahoma to be sold, somebody has to come out and inspect your field, find out that it's weed-free. Well, what weeds aren't supposed to be in it?
Right.
Well, Oklahoma decided to produce those rules. ODAF produced those rules in the late 2009 or so, in which they looked at, okay, if we're in the panhandle of Oklahoma and we want weed-free forage so that the producer could potentially get some value added to that product, then where might their market be? Colorado, New Mexico, Kansas, Texas. So Oklahoma, ODAF looked at those lists of their noxious weeds and their prohibited seeds, and they put those species on the list. So in Oklahoma, the cool thing about that is kudzu's on the list, can't have it in a pasture, thank God. And then Sericea lespedeza and Johnson grass. Those are now prohibited species in the weed-free forage law, or rule. But that's a rule, and that's through ODAF.
Right.
Why is ODAF not in charge? I don't know. I can't answer that. I need to get with the secretary.
That's always been a question of mine, because, the legislature they make the rules statewide, but for the industry that's actually impacted by that, to my naive mind would be that could be better managed by ODAF. That's just this guy's opinion.
But then again, you've got legislators who are going to say, "Oh no, we aren't going to put that species on there because that's not going to be budget neutral."
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's going to impact somebody.
Exactly.
So why is Sericea lespedeza not on the list? Because someone near Miami, Oklahoma, raises it for cropland.
Right.
Or raises it, for seeds.
Yeah.
That then they ship back to Japan.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Good discussion.
Tangled web, man.
Yeah.
Tangled web.
Thank you for listening in on this conversation of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. And if you would like to join the next discussion, send us an email, podcast@reddirtagronomy.com, or send us a tweet. Our handle is reddirtag. We would like to thank Dr. Karen Hickman for joining us on the podcast today. And to find out more about her or any of our guests, along with any of the resources that we talked about today on the podcast, visit reddirtagronomy.com. There you will find show notes and you can listen to past episodes too. For Dr. Josh Lofton, Dr. Jason Warren, and Dr. Brian Arnell, I am Dave Deacon, and thank you for listening. The proceeding is a copyrighted recording of Ag Now Media, LLC, 2022. And yes, all rights are reserved.